said that a year and a half ago, before they started the job that they're in now, they were in college. And so we can infer from that that the person is in their 20s. The other thing that I find interesting about these folks is that none of them have small children at home. That may be in part because at the very beginning of jury selection, Judge Merchan said that anybody who was unable to serve, either because they were unable to be fair and impartial on one hand, or because they had other responsibilities that rendered them unable to serve, could leave with no questions asked. That may have resulted in a number of people with caregiving responsibilities, including young mothers of young children, taking themselves out of that pool. And so what we're left with is a number of people on this jury who are either childless or have adult children and grandchildren.
So, Catherine, 7 jurors selected in this period of time. Is that typical?
That's very fast. I call it remarkable. There are only maybe a handful of judges who can do it that quickly, particularly for this type of case. When I say it's remarkable, because on a regular case with a no-name defendant, it doesn't happen that quickly. But clearly, Judge Merchan is moving it fast. If you saw yesterday, it was he was on a go, and he worked overtime. Typically, court ends at 4:30. He went over an hour to get those 7 jurors. And he told those 7 jurors, who are now sworn jurors, to come back Monday at 9:30, which means Judge Merchan intends to have a jury in place on Monday so there can be opening statements.
And so, Catherine, why do you think it's been a remarkably fast process versus other more traditional, I guess, court cases?
Well, 2 reasons. One, the judge or control. Judges are the ones that really can move the process along. 2, there were 96 people who were called. 50 automatically said, as Lisa said, I can't serve. I can't be fair and impartial. It could be because they don't like Trump. They love Trump, or, as Lisa said, they had caregiving. Well, what was left were clearly people who there were not a lot of issues. They were challenges for cause. They were granted. And the lawyers, both sides, used a number of their peremptory. But clearly there were just, as I'll call them, normal people who you would want to serve, who will take this seriously. Both sides hope.
And, John, in a new piece, you described the way both sides are grappling with the reality that most people have an opinion one way or another about Donald Trump. What did you see from both sides and the judge?
Yeah, I mean, what Catherine just said is so important. It really doesn't serve anyone, either the prosecution or the defense or Judge Merchan, for anything other than a perception of a fair trial, for these jurors to all be able to separate whatever they may feel about Donald Trump from the question of whether the facts applied to the law suggest or beyond a reasonable doubt prove that he's guilty. We've seen the judge also trying to make sure that this is an impartial jury, in particular when objections were raised by Trump's counsel yesterday after social media posts were surfaced by Trump's team. There were questions about whether some of these judges, based on what they had posted on social media, could be fair. We saw the judge agree with Trump's lawyers in a couple of those cases that those jurors could not be seen as impartial because of what they had said about him in the past. And then also in one case, the judge said, no, you're going too far here because it was basically one of the prospective jurors' husbands posting something. So there's been a lot of care taken to this, and I think by the end of this process, these jurors will have been advised repeatedly that they need to focus on the facts at hand and not anything else. And if you've ever been on a jury before, it's a pretty solemn thing, and I suspect most, if not all of them, will take it very seriously.
And Lisa, the judge admonished Trump for saying something in the direction of a juror yesterday. The judge said he will not have any juror intimidated. What could the judge do or consider that if Trump steps out of line again?
Jose, early in the trial, Judge Merchan gave Trump something called Parker warnings. And that basically included the warning that although Donald Trump has a right to be present during his trial, he can waive that right if he engages in misconduct during the course of the trial. So one thing that he could lose if he continues to behave in a way that the judge finds not consistent with the administration of justice is to take him out of the courtroom and have the trial continue. I don't think he will do that on a first or a second offense, but that's certainly something available to him. The other thing that's available to him is to hold him in contempt of court. Again, we know that criminal contempt in New York City can include a punishment of up to 30 days in jail, but it can also include some fines. So I suspect that the sticks that Judge Merchan has available at his disposal include jail time and banning Trump from the courtroom. He's hoping, however, that just the threat of using either of those will keep Donald Trump primarily in line.
Lisa, how would it actually physically be carried out if you want to get a defendant out of the courtroom? I mean, do you just physically take him out? How does that work?
I mean, look, Jose, when we're talking about somebody who's not the former president of the United States, they are escorted out of the courtroom by law enforcement specific to the court. Where you've got somebody, on the other hand, who's entitled to Secret Service protection, I'm not sure logistically how that would work. Obviously, there's no historical precedent for it. My guess is that he would enter some sort of order after a trial day, banning him from coming back if that were to occur. But it depends on how flagrant the violation is. Again, it's Judge Merchan's hope that we don't have to get there, and that by admonishing both Donald Trump and Todd Blanche yesterday to talk to his client about his conduct, that we never have to go down that road, because no judge wants to be in a position of presiding over a trial at which a criminal defendant is absent.
So, Carlos, after his trial yesterday, Trump went to a bodega where in 2022, a clerk fatally stabbed a man in self-defense. DA Bragg initially charged him, that clerk, with murder, eventually dropped the charges. What is the former president's political message here?
Well, Jose, if we follow Donald Trump closely, he has used all of these legal controversies, all of these indictments and trials as part of his political campaign. We know that during the primary, it really worked out for him because a lot of Republican primary voters perceived him to be a victim, someone who's being persecuted by the left. So that really consolidated his support. Now what he's trying to do, primary's over, he's looking at what are the voters, who are the voters that he can speak to, that he can steal from Democrats. So in this visit, what do you see? Minority voters. He goes to part of town where a lot of minority people live. Republicans think that Donald Trump can win more black and Hispanic voters than he did last time. And he's also looking for sympathy because he believes, Republicans theorize, that minority voters will be sympathetic to what Donald Trump is going through, that they will be able to relate to him because he is going through this difficult legal situation. So everything Trump does, legal defense, also combined with a political element to try to boost his chances this November.
So, John, now that Trump is going to have to be in court almost every day or every day, how could he use that in his campaign going forward?
Well, to your point earlier and to Congressman Curbello's point, we saw yesterday how he was using it to his advantage. Not only does he go to a bodega and the sort of broader question of whether he's appealing to Hispanic voters, minority voters by going to that bodega in that neighborhood, but particularly with the backstory behind that. In the 2020 campaign, his campaign concluded that every time he talked about cracking down on crime, it was helpful to him, particularly with Hispanic voters. And so we're seeing him deliver that message there, also delivering the message that DA Bragg has not prosecuted crimes, as particularly serious violent crimes. So we're seeing that matched against what he's saying is an unfair, unjust targeting of him for political purposes. So yesterday was a perfect microcosm of a lot of the arguments that he's making. In addition to that, we're going to see him, I think, during this, at least according to his aides, during this period when he has those Wednesdays free, go out and do some campaign events, maybe locally, maybe on the East Coast, and then on weekends we're more likely to see some of those traditional Trump rallies. But he's going to make the argument that he is being prosecuted, as a form of persecution and to stop his political ambition and those of the Republican Party. And we've been hearing it for a long time. We're going to continue to hear it more, and he's got visual evidence that he would like to show of him being in court to support that. Now, obviously, the DA believes that he has committed crimes for which he should be held accountable.
And Lisa, meanwhile, jury selection resumes tomorrow morning. What can we expect?
Jose, one of the things that I'm really interested in and watching for is whether or not the defense has the opportunity today to do their research on the 96 jurors who will be part of tomorrow morning's pool, assuming that they have from last night through all the way through today until tomorrow morning to do so. Expect them to come armed with more social media profiles and other ammunition to try and excuse jurors for cause. That's particularly true since of their 10 peremptory challenges to the 12 jurors, they've already used 6. That means they have 4 remaining challenges to strike jurors for any reason whatsoever, and they're going to have to use those judiciously. Their alternative is to try and convince Judge Merchan that there are jurors who are incapable of being impartial, and they will rely on whatever evidence they can glean from the internet to do so, particularly because they have these 96 jurors' prospective names.
John Allen, Lisa Rubin, Catherine Christian, thank you all so very much. Former Congressman Corbello, if you would stick around, because still ahead, what the U.S. is doing right now to prevent a full-out war from breaking out in the Middle East. Here at home, we're just hours away from a Senate showdown as it takes up articles of impeachment against Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. And moments from now, a Boeing whistleblower about to tell Congress why he claims the 787 Dreamliner could break apart mid-air. We're back in 60 seconds with what he exclusively told our very own Tom Costello. You're watching Jose Diaz Balart Reports on MSNBC.
You were diagnosed with thyroid eye disease a long time ago. And year after year, you weathered the storm and just lived with the damage that was left behind. But even after all this time, your thyroid eye disease could still change. Restoration is still possible. Learn how you could give your eyes a fresh start at TEDhelp.com.
My frequent heartburn had me taking antacid after antacid all day long. But with Prilosec OTC, just 1 pill a day blocks heartburn for a full 24 hours. For one-and-done heartburn relief, Prilosec OTC, 1 pill a day, 24 hours, 0 heartburn.
Here's to getting better with age.
Here's to beating these two every Thursday.
Help fuel today with Boost High Protein. Complete nutrition you need without the stuff you don't. So, here's to now.
And we have breaking news. According to the FAA website, Alaska Airlines has asked for a nationwide ground stop. We are going to monitor this story for you and bring you any updates as we get them. Meanwhile, any moment now, a Boeing whistleblower is set to testify before a Senate committee about what he claims is the aerospace giant's broken safety culture. That hearing is getting underway right now, but in an exclusive interview with NBC News, the whistleblower, who is a Boeing quality engineer, delivered his first on-camera interview, detailing his allegations that the company's 787 Dreamliner planes could fall apart mid-flight due to assembly flaws. Boeing disputes accusations the plane is unsafe. Joining us now, NBC's Tom Costello, who spoke with that whistleblower, and Jeff Gazzetti, NBC News aviation analyst and a former FAA and NTSB investigator. So, Tom, what do we expect this witness to tell lawmakers today?
Well, can I first give you a caveat on the news about Alaska Airlines? We believe that that's related to a computer outage. Nothing, we believe, related to the